Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm here today to speak to Private Member's Bill C-233, an act to amend the Criminal Code, sex-selective abortion, at second reading. I really wish that I didn't have to be. I am, quite frankly, disappointed that I have to spend time in the year 2021 on the abortion debate in Canada, when a woman's right to choose has been law for over 30 years. It really is unfortunate that members of Parliament are still seeking to restrict that right. The sponsor claims that this bill is to address sex-based discrimination. To achieve that goal, this bill would create a new criminal code offense prohibiting doctors from performing an abortion knowing that it is sought solely on the grounds of the fetus's genetic sex. While I note that the offense is ostensibly aimed at doctors, I must point out that it would also criminalize women as parties to the offense. Make no mistake, Bill C-233 will limit a woman's right to choose by doing this. Criminalizing a woman for seeking to get an abortion is a violation of the fundamental rights of women in Canada, and it is just plain wrong. I would like to speak to what we know about the impact of using the criminal law to regulate abortion. We need not look further than Canada's own legal history of abortion regulation and its impact on Canadian women. That history reflects what the international evidence tells us. Criminal restrictions on abortion result in women having less access to them, and having less access negatively impacts on women's equality rights. Let's take a look at how we got to where we are today. Currently, no criminal offenses apply to abortion, and the provinces and territories are responsible for providing safe abortion services to Canadian women. However, we must not forget that until 1969, abortion was absolutely prohibited in Canada. That meant that very few, if any, safe options were available to women. Women were forced to either bring an unwanted pregnancy to term or access unsafe and unregulated methods like back alley abortions that often led to infection and death. Women who sought abortions also risked criminal sanction, and doctors who provided safe abortions risked punishment. Many of us will remember Dr. Morgentaler. He was incarcerated for saving women's lives. He risked his own safety to champion women's rights, and for that he was awarded the Order of Canada in 2008. I cannot emphasize enough how much we do not want to return to that era. I am proud to live in a country where women have safe access to abortion and do not need to worry about criminal reprisals. Again, Madam Speaker, I am very disappointed to be here today, having to fight against an attempt to limit these hard-earned and important rights. The evidence before the court in the Morgentaler case highlighted the medical risks and psychological trauma restricting access to abortion caused women seeking abortion services in Canada, and the importance of affording women autonomy to make decisions about their own bodies. The provisions were found to violate women's security of the person rights. This is because, and I quote Justice Bertha Wilson, the first woman justice of the Supreme Court, who said, those provisions asserted that, quote, a woman's capacity to reproduce is to be subject not to her own control, but to that of the state, unquote. The court found the violation of women's rights by limiting access to abortion to be completely unacceptable, and so do I. The court has been very clear on this front, and I think that a court could also find this legislation unconstitutional for the same reasons should it pass. The 1969 provisions remained in the criminal code, but were unenforceable until they were repealed in 2019 by our government in the former Bill C-75. Other related abortion offenses were repealed by our government in 2018 by former Bill C-51. Even though they were inoperable, I am proud that our government took the important step to remove these discriminatory provisions. It took more than 100 years to remove abortion-related criminal offenses from our criminal code, which is frankly a shameful mark. But again, I'm quite proud to be part of the government that finally removed them from the books, and I have no intention of supporting any attempt to add them back. Consistent with the Canadian experience, international research has shown that using the criminal law to regulate any aspect of abortion results in barriers to accessing abortion services, which contributes to gender inequality. For example, international research indicates that laws restricting the use of technology for sex selection purposes, as well as sex-selective abortions, are likely to have harmful impacts on women. These impacts include women seeking unsafe procedures that fall outside regulations, protocols, and monitoring. I fail to see how criminalizing women who choose sex selection abortion, perhaps because of familial pressure to do so, protects them, or other women for that matter, from discrimination. Rather, a criminal law response is more likely to detract from women's equality rights by creating barriers to accessing abortion. The United Nations recommends combating this form of discrimination by addressing the root causes of gender equality. This includes focusing on advancing access to education, health services, and economic resources for women and girls. I am pleased to note that our government has made significant investments to advance gender equality, guided by Women and Gender Equality Results Framework, introduced in Budget 2018. Criminalizing women seeking abortion is not the solution to this problem and would be a massive step backwards for this country. I cannot emphasize enough how disappointed I am to see that there is yet another attempt in this bill to limit a woman's right to choose. In Canada, I'm proud to say, abortion services are treated like the medical service that it is and falls within the responsibility of the provincial and territorial health sector. All medical procedures are subject to medical professional standards. Ultimately, what could happen if we were to enact an offense such as this? Perhaps doctors would refuse to provide abortion services out of fear of criminalization because they believe their patient may be choosing abortion for the wrong reasons. Perhaps a woman who needs access to an abortion would be afraid to seek it out in case they're reported and charged for having done so. Perhaps women from certain communities would be denied access to abortion based on discriminatory views about their reason for seeking it. In short, I fear that this bill could undo decades of arduous work to ensure that women never face these barriers again. I was really disappointed to see the leader of the opposition indicate that his caucus will be allowed a free vote on such a fundamental issue as protecting women's right to choose. I hope members of the Conservative Party who are currently heckling me will recognize that, as all other members of this House do, how important it is to protect equality rights for women in Canada and join me and the government in voting against this legislation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, and I do want to